The courtroom was silent as a black man, frail and weathered, shuffled in, his wrists bound by cold steel handcuffs. His dark face, etched with decades of pain, dipped low, hiding eyes that once burned with purpose. "Name?" the clerk demanded. His voice, rough but resolute, answered, "Mason Quinn, Staff Sergeant, United States Marine Corps." A ripple ran through the room. No one expected the truth about to unravel, a truth that would leave the judge trembling, her past colliding with the broken man before her. Who was this forgotten figure, and what secret tied him to her life? Comment below, what's the most powerful story of sacrifice you've heard? Hit like if courage inspires you, and subscribe to HeroHush Stories for tales that honor the brave. Now, let's uncover Mason's story. Mason Quinn, a 69-year-old black veteran, sat on the courtroom's worn bench, his skin a roadmap of hardship under the stark fluorescent lights. His army jacket, faded and oversized from a shelter's donation bin, sagged on his thin frame, a far cry from the crisp Marine uniform he once wore, adorned with medals earned in battle. The lines on his face told of Vietnam's jungles and Iraq's deserts, where he'd served with unwavering resolve. Now, he faced a different kind of fight, not against enemies, but against a system that saw him as a nuisance. His body ached with arthritis, old shrapnel wounds, and the weight of invisible scars, PTSD that haunted his nights and stole his peace. The bailiff's voice cut through the air, Case 47B, City vs. Mason Quinn. Charges: public disturbance, trespassing, resisting arrest. Mason stood slowly, each movement a reminder of injuries never fully healed, shrapnel in his leg from Vietnam, a concussion from a Fallujah blast. His hands, scarred and calloused, trembled slightly, not from fear but from a body pushed past its limits. What crime had brought him here? A quiet act of survival, seeking warmth in a world that had turned its back on him. Could justice be so blind to a man who'd given everything? The prosecutor, a young man with a polished suit and a voice dripping with confidence, laid out his case. Mr. Quinn was repeatedly warned for loitering behind Jefferson Street Cafe. The owner filed 3 complaints this month alone. The truth was colder than the December nights Mason endured. He hadn't been causing trouble, he'd been huddling near the cafe's kitchen vent, where warm air offered brief relief from the biting frost. He never begged, never spoke to customers, just sat in the shadows, invisible to all but one, Jimmy, the cook, who slipped him scraps when no one was looking. Officer James Reynolds took the stand, his tone clipped. At 11:45 p.m., I found the defendant behind the cafe. He refused to comply with orders to leave. Refused? Mason had only asked for a moment longer to finish a sandwich Jimmy had handed him, a small act of kindness in a world short on it. But to the officer, it was resistance, a mark against a man already down. Why bother arguing? Mason knew the system rarely listened. The prosecutor pressed on. This is Mr. Quinn's 3rd offense this year. We recommend 100 hours of community service and a 30-day ban from the downtown business district. The words landed like a gut punch. That ban would sever Mason from the 4th Street shelter, his only safe haven, and St. Luke's Church, where he ate on Tuesdays and Thursdays. It meant nights exposed to winter's cruelty, no bed, no food, no hope. Could a punishment so harsh be called justice? Judge Olivia Parker, her expression unreadable behind crescent-shaped glasses, turned to Mason. "Do you have an attorney, Mr. Quinn?" He shook his head. No public defender had shown up, stuck in another hearing. "Would you like to make a statement?" she asked, her voice calm but probing. Mason cleared his throat, the sound rusty from days of silence. "No excuses, Your Honor. I was just trying to stay warm, keep the cold from my bones." "Why that spot?" "Jimmy, the cook, he's a good kid. His father was my friend in the Gulf War. He helps when he can." "And your service?" "United States Marine Corps, 1975 to 1995. Staff Sergeant, 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines. Served in Vietnam, then Iraq." His chest lifted slightly, a spark of pride cutting through his exhaustion. Judge Parker jotted a note, her eyes lingering on his file. A shadow crossed her face, something in those pages stirred a memory. What had she seen? Before she could speak, the courtroom doors swung open with a thud. A man in a sleek, expensive suit strode in, leather briefcase in hand. "Your Honor, Alexander Rossi, for the defendant. I've been retained to represent Mr. Quinn." Mason's eyes widened. He hadn't hired anyone. He couldn't afford a lawyer, let alone one who looked like he belonged in a boardroom. "This is irregular," Judge Parker said, her tone sharp but curious. The court wasn't notified. Rossi remained composed. "A recent development, Your Honor. I request a 15-minute recess to confer with my client." The judge nodded, her gaze flickering between Mason and the file. In the recess, Rossi leaned close. "No charge, Mr. Quinn. Williams, Rossi, and Parker is handling your case pro bono." Parker, like the judge. "Exactly," Rossi said, a knowing glint in his eye. What invisible thread tied this courtroom together? In her chambers, Judge Parker sat alone, her hands unsteady as she pulled a worn photo from her desk drawer. It showed her younger self beside her brother, Lieutenant Jack Parker, in his Marine uniform, both smiling at his promotion ceremony. Next to it lay his final letter from Iraq, its edges frayed from years of rereading. In it, he'd written of a Staff Sergeant Quinn who braved a hail of bullets to save him in Fallujah, 2004. Was this destitute man that same hero? Rossi entered her chambers, concern etching his face. "Olivia, what's going on?" As a family friend and former law partner of her late husband, he could read her unease. "It's him, Alex," she whispered, pointing to the photo. "The Marine who saved Jack." The pieces fell into place: severe PTSD, a wife who left during his deployment, VA claims lost in red tape, construction jobs ended by injury, foreclosure, homelessness. How does a decorated Marine end up in rags, fighting for scraps of warmth? Ethical lines blurred. Could she judge impartially, knowing this man's sacrifice? Yet letting him slip away felt like betraying Jack's memory. Back in the courtroom, Rossi moved swiftly. "Your Honor, we request dismissal of all charges. My client had permission from the cafe staff to be there. He was seeking shelter from life-threatening cold, a basic human need." The prosecutor began to object, but Judge Parker silenced him with a raised hand. "I have questions for the defendant," she said, her voice steady but her eyes locked on Mason. "You served in Fallujah, April 17, 2004, with the 2nd Battalion, 8th Marines." Mason nodded, memories flooding back like shrapnel. "Yes, ma'am. Convoy hit hard. Enemy fire everywhere." "Did you rescue Lieutenant Jack Parker?" The room went still, every eye on Mason. What truth was about to break the surface? Mason's voice grew distant, heavy with memory. "Lieutenant Parker, young, brave officer. Took a bullet trying to reach a wounded corpsman. I dragged him behind a wall, laid down cover so the medevac could get through." His words hung in the air, raw and vivid. A shout erupted from the gallery. "That's him. Staff Sergeant Quinn saved us all." A silver-haired man in a Marine Corps League jacket stood, saluting, his face streaked with tears. "I was there that day, he pulled 6 of us out." The courtroom buzzed, the bailiff struggling to restore order. Judge Parker banged her gavel, but her voice wavered. "Order." She recessed again, retreating to her chambers. Alone, she dialed a number she hadn't called in years. "Colonel Matthews, it's Olivia Parker. I need you here now, urgent." 10 minutes later, she returned, flanked by 3 uniformed Marines, a colonel, a master sergeant, and a corporal carrying a polished wooden case. The crowd hushed, sensing history unfolding. Mason rose instinctively, his body snapping to attention despite the pain in his joints. Judge Parker removed her glasses, her voice shifting from judicial to human. "I must disclose a personal connection. Lieutenant Jack Parker was my brother. Gasps rippled through the room. Mason's eyes widened, a flicker of recognition crossing his weathered face. 20 years ago, Jack wrote to our family about a Staff Sergeant Quinn who ran through enemy fire to save him in Fallujah. You gave him 2 more weeks of life, weeks we cherished. The silver-haired veteran in the gallery nodded fiercely. Quinn took 2 bullets himself, Your Honor, and still got us out. She pressed on, her voice steady but thick with emotion. After Jack's death in an IED blast, I searched for you, Sergeant Quinn. The Marine Corps said you'd redeployed, then discharged with severe PTSD and a traumatic brain injury. I lost you, until today. Mason stood frozen, emotions warring across his face, disbelief, guilt, pride. Colonel Matthews stepped forward, his presence commanding. Staff Sergeant Quinn, the Marine Corps has been trying to find you. Newly declassified records from 2004 confirm your actions in Fallujah saved Lieutenant Parker, 5 other Marines, and disrupted an ambush that could have wiped out the entire convoy. Your Silver Star is hereby upgraded to the Navy Cross, second only to the Medal of Honor. The corporal opened the wooden case, revealing the gleaming medal on its blue ribbon. The courtroom erupted, veterans stood, saluting, civilians rose in awe, even the prosecutor stood, his face a mix of shame and respect. Mason's voice cracked. This is a mistake, sir. I only did what any Marine would. The colonel's eyes softened. No mistake, Sergeant. This honor is long overdue. Judge Parker's gavel fell with finality. All charges against Staff Sergeant Mason Quinn are dismissed with prejudice. The Master Sergeant approached, tablet in hand. Sir, your VA benefits have been updated, 100% service-connected disability, retroactive to your discharge. Full back pay, medical coverage, housing stipend, and educational benefits. Rossi added, our firm will ensure every detail is handled, no more delays. Jimmy, the cook, pushed through the crowd, tears streaming. My dad served with you in the Gulf. He said Mason Quinn saved his whole unit. I've been giving you food for years, never knowing it was you. The prosecutor, visibly shaken, stepped forward. Sir, I had no idea. Please accept my apology for this case. Mason stood in the center, surrounded by gratitude, his stoic mask crumbling as decades of isolation began to lift. But could one moment truly heal a lifetime of being forgotten? 2 weeks later, Mason stood in a small, clean apartment, his own, secured through the Veterans Housing Program. On the bare wall hung his Navy Cross, Purple Hearts, and service medals, painstakingly recovered by Rossi from a storage unit lost to auction years ago. The medals gleamed, a testament to a life of sacrifice now recognized. A knock at the door broke his thoughts. Judge Parker, Olivia, stood there, no judicial robe, holding a small wooden box. Just Mason, please, he said, still adjusting to his new reality. Then I'm just Olivia, she replied, her smile warm but tinged with sorrow. They sat in the modest living room, the weight of their shared history filling the space. Olivia opened the box, revealing a bundle of letters. These are from Jack, she said softly. He wrote to us every week during his deployment. This one, written the day after Fallujah, is about you. Mason's hands trembled as he unfolded the paper, Jack's neat handwriting bringing the past into sharp focus. He read aloud, voice breaking, Mom, Dad, I'm alive because of Staff Sergeant Quinn. We were pinned down, bullets everywhere. He ran through fire to pull me to safety, took hits himself, and never flinched. Said no Marine gets left behind. He's the kind of leader I'll never match. Olivia's eyes glistened. Jack wrote about you often. He said you were the Marine he wanted to be, selfless, unbreakable. His last mission, the one that took him, was his choice to lead a patrol against insurgents targeting civilians. He wanted to live up to your example. Mason's breath caught, years of guilt, wondering if saving Jack only delayed his death, beginning to unravel. I thought it was all for nothing, he whispered. That no one remembered. Olivia placed a hand on his shoulder. It mattered, Mason. To Jack, to his men, to me. After his death, I went to law school, started the Veterans Court program, pushed for housing initiatives, all because of what Jack wrote about you, about how even heroes can be failed by the system. Mason looked away, uncomfortable with the praise. I'm no hero. I just did my job. Olivia smiled gently. That's what heroes always say. She paused, then continued. The day Jack died, he was protecting others, just as you taught him. His last letter said he hoped to make you proud. The words hit Mason like a wave, washing away decades of doubt. Outside, snow fell softly, wrapping the city in a quiet embrace. Mason stood taller, the weight of forgotten years lifting, replaced by a quiet pride. Someone remembered my name, he said, voice barely audible but firm. This isn't just Mason's story, it's a reminder that heroes walk among us, often unseen, their sacrifices buried by time. Honor doesn't need glory, it shines in quiet acts of courage, in refusing to leave anyone behind. If Mason's journey moved you, like, subscribe to HeroHush Stories, and comment, respect, below to honor those who give everything. Share this with someone who needs to know their sacrifices matter. More stories of courage and redemption await, don't miss the next one.